All right, hey guys, Jerry from Showtime Audio. Just wanted to show you another sound treatment. So this is a 2023 Land Rover Defender. So you would think that the car is very well deadened or insulated. So we wanted to show you. So this is, again, the amount of work that it takes. There's like a million bolts just to remove this is the central door card. This is the part that separates the door from the inside of the car. But as you can see, the only piece of deadener is right here. So see this little square? And believe it or not, it doesn't help very much. I mean, it helps a little. We'll show you more once we're done. But this is the level of deadener that you get with a brand new high-end vehicle. The deadener is just not high on the list. So quieting the cabin, they're doing it with ANCs, which is speakers, as opposed to actually quieting the vehicle with sound treatment. We're gonna do our stage 1, our stage 2, and our stage 3. So our stage 1 is typically quiets the cabin the most. So it makes this outer metal, gives it more mass and gives the door more of a thud. So that basically helps with eliminating some of the noise for the vehicle. Our stage 2, which is the outside of the inner skin, helps with creating a better enclosure for the speaker. So now that the back is deadened and the front is deadened, the enclosure is actually more dense or stiff, and therefore we can get more mid-bass out of it. And then our stage 3, which is the inside of the door panel, that helps just, again, add mass and keep the plastic from vibrating and rattling. So every stage does something to improve the overall sound quality as well as the road noise. So this is our stage 1. So I don't know if, as you can see, we've done as much of the area as we can get to. So obviously the only thing we haven't done is the cross bracing, because that is already pretty rigid. And then we've also done, in this particular case, we did something a little different. So typically stage 2 would be the outside of the inner skin, but in this particular case we're doing the inside of the inner skin. Reason being is, on this car, this inner skin is also part of the door panel. So like, you can see this section, you can see this section, then there's another piece we'll show you in a minute that snaps on and covers up all this here. So what we did is, all the big flat spots on the back of the door panel, we covered those. So now it's just a lot more. I'll show you the other one. It's much more tinny than this one is. And then last thing we'll show you is our stage 3, which is on the plastic last layer that goes on. So we wanted to show you what a difference this makes. I don't know if you can hear that, but it thuds, right? So it's got a thud to it, as opposed to, let me show you on this back door that's not treated or treated from the factory. You can hear how it kind of tinny and clanks, and then this one just thuds. So just to show you how effective the sound treatment is. So this is the door panel itself. So this is our stage 3. So we're trying to focus around where the speaker is, where all the vibration and the energy is going to be. So we're deadening as much as we can. Obviously this is a very complicated panel, so we're putting in a bunch of smaller pieces and mainly focusing on the larger flat spots, basically anything where something could rattle. This is our middler. So we built this, we machined this bracket, and it bolts in with these 2 factory bolts, and then we added another bolt here just to make it secure. And these are all threaded. These are M4 bolts, and then the middler itself is bolted in with these M3 bolts. And what that does is it mounts the 3-inch middler right in the opening for where the stock one used to be. And then same thing, we added that XTC connector. So this way we can just, when we get to the car, we just plug it in and the car can be assembled, and then unplug it whenever you need to service it. And just want to show you the stock stereo. So this panel snaps into place, right? This is actually where your heat comes out for the people in the back. So the bass all the bass for the vehicle only comes through these 2 tiny little holes. This one right here and that one there. So that's where all your bass technically is coming from in this vehicle. It's one of the reasons the car lacks so much bass. This is the subwoofer. It's an infinite baffle. So if I remove this, there's actually a hole in the floor. So it's using the underside of the car as a cavity for the enclosure. So it allows them to put in a much smaller woofer because you don't have an enclosure necessarily. It's using the cavity underneath here as the enclosure. All right, so we're integrating into this brand new 2292 Defender, and as you can see, we have the car quite a bit apart. So we had to remove and get to the stock subwoofer. We pulled it out. The subwoofer actually lives in this cavity under the seat, but we need to test the wires. So what we're using is, this is an RTA, a real-time analyzer. So this lets us see what the car sounds like. So it lets us electrically see the signal. So I'm trying to determine where to grab signal for my amplifier, because we're going to be adding a subwoofer, and we want to make sure that we grab the correct signal, because if we grab a speaker and there is no sub signal, then our bass isn't going to sound like anything because we have no information there. So we're just using this tool to verify that we're at the correct speaker wires and that we have the correct signal. Okay, so I'm going to make a quick disconnect for the Range Rover. So we're going to tap in our signal, but we don't want to modify the truck basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a connector so that we can easily tap in and unhook. So if we ever have to, if the vehicle ever gets returned or is sold, all we have to do is go in there, disconnect our connection. We have a cap for this, and then the car, you'll never know we were there. So we're doing the speaker upgrade on this Defender. So what we did is we solder in these XT connectors so that if the car ever does need to go to service and needs to be, they need to access the window or anything, they don't have to cut any of our wires. The nice thing is these just plug in and it's a solid connection, and we'll tape that so that makes sure it doesn't come apart. And then as you can see, we did the woofer as well. Now we leave all the stock connectors intact, so if the car ever does get sold, we just can unplug our speaker, plug the stock connector back in, and this way there's no modification to the vehicle. So typically most times you just take the wires and you strip the wires and you solder them on. The problem is, which is much easier, takes way less time, but if the car ever does need to get serviced, the mechanic or body shop or whatever has to either just leave the panel hanging because they don't want to cut the wire, or they have to cut the wire, and now you pray they're putting the wire back together correctly and soldering it, heat shrinking and all that. So in order to avoid that and help everybody out, we put these XT connectors, which allow us to make it's a solid connection, and then therefore there's no worry. So if anybody ever has to service it, mechanic, body shop, the owner, whatever, it's literally just plug and play.